This NFL Week 9 Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to Brown downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley.
Wilson, what as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into NFL Week 9 player props. Coming off the Thursday night football game. Unfortunately, my Texans do fall on the short side of the stick there, but we'll get into that momentarily. But you guys know how we do it here. We'll get into our player props for NFL Week 9, discuss some honorable mentions, and then we'll get into our touchdown scores and best bets for Week 9. But joining me here to help me break everything down happening on the Propcast for Week 9, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
What's up, Munaf? I won't complain, man. It's a beautiful Friday over here on the East Coast. I can't complain, though. I will tell you that. I feel like a fish this morning. I've been hooked. I've been hooked. Aaron Rodgers over 33.5 pass attempts yesterday. Falls just one or two short. Joe Mixon over his 110 rushing plus receiving yards. If he doesn't catch a pass and still almost gets 110 rush plus receiving yards, finishes 4 short. That feels like a hook. Yeah, just feel like a hook. I did cash on Breece Hall under his 15.5 rush attempts, and also his anytime touchdown for Joe Mixon was pretty good money, and we got it at a good price. But boy, it felt like there was so much more that was kind of left on the table. But I digress. Here excited to talk about week number 9 in the NFL and get into the player props for sure.
Yeah, I think there's the opportunity that was there for, I think, Mixon. I think, yeah, I want to say he was close to I think he had like 17, 18 carries in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. It seemed like he was going to get over his rush attempts in that first half there. But like you mentioned, he finished the game with 106 rushing yards, 24 carries. We did talk about the touchdown score for him there as well. It felt like it was a little bit cheap there, but he did find the end zone. But I think we did pretty good on our touchdown scores. I know we mentioned Devontae Adams to possibly find the end zone. He did that late in that fourth quarter. I think I mentioned Garrett Wilson as well. He finished the game with 2 touchdown catches as well. I did mention his as my best bet, Garrett Wilson, longest completion to get over 21.5 receiving yards, and he did have 1 for 26 there. Then you talked about Joe Mixon rushing yards to go over as well. I think the only one that did fall short for me was Aaron Rodgers to throw an interception, but that did not come into fruition in this game there. But Jets do get the 21-13 victory here against the Texans. Texans now 6-3 on the season, while the Jets improved to 3-6 on the season there. So we'll put a pin on Thursday night football. Week 9 has some great, intriguing matchups, of course, all throughout the day there, leading into Sunday night football, of course, as well. And then Monday night football has the Bucs and the Chiefs, a rematch of the Super Bowl from a few years ago between those two squads there. But Chris, before we dive into our player props here, let me just quickly thank everybody on the Propcast here, our listeners who've tuned in with us over the years. And without them, we wouldn't be really here without this podcast and how much has really grown over the past year or so here. But if you can do us a favor, if you are on Spotify listening to this or on Apple, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star rating. Only you can prevent corporate gambling from taking over. All right, Chris, let's not waste any time here, man. Let's just dive right into it here. NFL Week 9 player props. Start here with our quarterback props, and then we'll work our way from there. Who are you looking at for quarterbacks this week?
This is going to be a great week, or it's going to be a terrible week because I like all my props. I absolutely love these. It's going to be hard to find a best bet. But quarterback, we go Bo Nix. Why not? 211.5 passing yards here, minus 115 over on BetMGM. Expecting this number to increase, of course, as well. You get a Baltimore defense here, that is absolutely elite. We've been talking about this all Propcast. I think we even mentioned this in the divisional previews as well. This Baltimore run defense is great. Number 1 in stopping the rush, but they rank number 32, which is last in the NFL. in yards allowed through the air. I think you hit on this player prop last week, and that happened to be, I don't know if you took it or not, or if you talked about it in the honorable mention section, but didn't you give out a good old Jameis Winston over on his passing yards last week, you know?
Yeah, we talked about Winston and just exactly what you mentioned there about the great rush defense for the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. So you look at Bo Nix specifically, because it's more than just just that defense, but you look at Bo Nix specifically, hit me off, and Bo Nix is actually, they're trusting him a lot more. We're expecting game strip, potentially for Baltimore to be playing from ahead. So that's even more attempts that Bo Nix would get. But if you just look at his yards, the 212 number specifically, he's passed for more than 212 in 5 of the 7 games. And if I do think that the New Orleans game, one of those games he went under, the New Orleans game was a bit of an outlier because the rush defense was so bad that he didn't really have to do much. Like, that was a big Jamal Williams game. I mentioned this, but the offensive play caller trusting him a little bit more, allowing him to make plays with his arms. He's attempted at least 26 passes in 6 of his last 8 games, So slow start to the season, of course. We remember that Seattle game being an absolute rock fight. I think he might have felt like 10 passing yards in that full game, but he's really picked it up a lot here, and it does feel like I said, they trust him a little bit more. So we'll go Bo Nix to start the thing off, over 211.5 passing yards here to get things started.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it's a theme that we've talked about throughout the season here about fading running backs against the Baltimore Ravens and looking at those quarterbacks to go over their passing yards. And it's been profitable more times than not this season. I think Sunday is another great example of that. For this Denver Broncos offense, especially with Bo Nix back there, who's, I think, steadily just getting better and better every single week for this offense of the Denver Broncos.
4 straight weeks, 4 straight weeks,
yeah,
and in 7 of the, actually only 1 quarterback so far this season. It was the game against the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen only passed for 180, but every other quarterback, so 7 for 8 overall. And 4 straight have gone up and over the 212. I should have probably said that as well.
No, yeah. I mean, I think the listeners know that if they've been listening to us all season, this has definitely been a theme here on the Propcast here. All right, Chris, for my first player prop, there's 2 I like. I'll save 1 for honorable mention just because the line has moved, but I still think that it's a good prop to get down on. But I'm looking at Dak in this game against the Falcons to go over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And number 1, we talked a lot about how bad the running game or pretty much has been non-existent for this team are the Cowboys, and it's really been on the shoulders of Dak Prescott. And I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games here. You're in a dome, so the weather's not going to be a factor in this game. This is one of the higher totals on the board this week as well. So I think that just being in those same conditions that they've been in when they play at their home games in Dallas, I don't think that's going to be a huge factor here. You also take a look at really the defense for the Atlanta Falcons. I know they've been missing guys on the offensive side, on the defensive side, but 4 straight quarterbacks have gone over this projection of the against the Falcons pass defense there. So they threw 3 against the Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield threw 3 against the Falcons in week 5. Andy Dalton threw 2 against the Carolina Panthers in week 6. Week 7, Geno Smith for the Seahawks threw 2 touchdowns. And then last week, again, Baker Mayfield threw 3 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Falcons again in that, rematch from week 5. So I think there's an opportunity for Dak Prescott to get up and over this number of 1.5 passing touchdowns. You also take a look at what he's done throughout the season here for this Cowboys offense. He has 10 passing touchdowns on the season, and he's gone over this projection in 4 of the last 5 games for the Dallas Cowboys, during 2 touchdowns each in those games here. So I think he can do it again here against the Atlanta Falcons. So give me Dak Prescott over 1.5 passing touchdowns here, Chris.
Yeah, I think this one makes a ton of sense. If it's the 4 and 4, right? You mentioned 4 of the last 5, he's actually thrown for multiple touchdowns. 4 straight teams against this Falcons defense is throwing for multiple touchdowns. Love it. Hopefully CeeDee Lamb catches a couple of those on my fantasy team this week. Got him in 2 leagues. You're muted,
Oh, my bad. There we go. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get over to our running back props here for the week 9 schedule. Chris, lead us off.
I love a good under. Kenneth Walker, we're going under 14.5 rush attempts here, really stifling defense that he's going to be playing against here. A number that Kenneth Walker have actually exceeded. He's exceeded this number in 5 straight. Well, that has not exceeded. I'm sorry. So it's 5-0 to the under on his under 14.5 rush attempts here. You'd have to go all the way back to week 1 against the Denver Broncos defense, where he ran the ball 20 times to find an over for Kenneth Walker on his rush attempts. This game gives me shootout vibes. If you mentioned the Dallas and Atlanta game giving you shootout vibes, this one gives me shootout vibes as well. The Rams have a gunslinger in Matthew Stafford we know about, and so do the Seahawks on the opposite side with Geno Smith. We know that. In fact, if you look at the Seahawks, they're passing the ball at the second highest rate so far amongst any team in the NFL. Their 68.9% completion percentage ranks number 5 in the NFL, and their 262 passing yards per game also ranks number 1. So what does that tell you about the Seahawks? Maybe if this is your first time ever watching the Seahawks, they like to throw the ball. I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to have a lot of success here. You look at, just the 2 games that he's played so far in his career against this Rams defense, and he's only run the football. And they both happened to come last year, ran the ball 12 times and 4 times. So this one to me feels like just a gunslinger mentality here. If I think we see, the running backs not as efficient, specifically Kenneth Walker. I don't think he's going to run the ball 15 times here. I did take him under 14.5 minus 105 over on BetMGM.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off. The numbers that you mentioned there, I think we've talked about this a lot throughout the season, as well as that Seahawks love to throw the football. And I think this is going to be another game, possibly trailing this game. I know they're waiting on the news of DK Metcalf, if he's going to play in this game or not. I think that'll be a big indicator here as well. But I think Kenneth Walker has really been more involved in the passing game as well. I mentioned Kenneth Walker last week on his receiving yards. I think that would definitely be the way to back him in this game. I like 2, again, running backs prop here. And again, I'll save 1 for honorable mentions. I'll stay in the same game here, Chris. I'll take Kyren Williams over 91.5 rushing yards in this game. And look, it's a big number. It's a big number for a reason. Last night we talked about Joe Mixon. His number of his rush attempts was the same number, 20.5. So I do think that, again, if he does get close to 20 to 21 carries, or even gets, again, 25 carries in this game, that he's going to get up and over this number. But you take a look at the Seahawks rush defense this season. Teams are rushing for 130 rushing yards per game on close to 25 carries per game. And we just go back the past several weeks. Tyron Tracy, week 5 against the Seahawks, 129 rushing yards. We had Isaac Guerrero of the San Francisco 49ers, 99 rushing yards. Bijan Robinson, 21 for 103. Then last week, James Cook, 17 for 111. So not only are they getting gashed for long runs, but the rush attempts have also been there for these teams here of the or opposing, I should say, running backs against the Seahawks there. So yeah, I like Kyren Williams this week. If he gets, again, in the realm of another 20 plus carries here, I think he definitely gets over this number of 91.5. And just looking at him last week, he had 23 carries for 97 rushing yards against the Vikings. But his 3 straight weeks here, Chris, he's had 21 or more rushing attempts for this Rams team here. So I think that success continues this week here for Kyren Williams. And he's at least, or at least I should say, through the last 4 weeks as well, where he's gone over this projection of 91.5. So if it's not broke, don't try to fix it, as our good friend says. So I'm going to continue writing that here with Kyren Williams over 91.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, you mentioned him. It's the run defense, and this feels like the perfect storm for a nice player prop. And like you said, the number's high, but it's definitely high for a reason. I was actually on Kyren Williams under last week. You remember we talked about that. Yeah. And if he can do that against that Vikings defense, now you get a bottom 3 rush defense here, and just the amount of carries. It feels like they really found something. Sean McVay kind of, utilizing him a little bit more. You see the last 3 weeks, he has at least 21 carries in every single game. So, yeah, no way I'm looking at the under here. Also yards per carry are really, really there. 4.2, 3.6, 4.6, and 4.9 in his last 4 games. Makes a ton of sense. I like this one a lot.
All right, before we get over to our wide receiver props slash tight end props for this upcoming week here. Let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em is one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, and NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Definitely going to have Kyron Williams in my entry this week to go higher on his rushing yards. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, that's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here, man. I think we're making good time here on the show today. Let's get over to the third player prop here. What do you got for this week?
We're going Scary Terry up and over. Terry McLaurin over his longest reception, 22.5 yards. Munaf taught me. Minus 114 over on FanDuel. So I want to start with this. So two things I want to start with. Jaden Daniels is questionable. He was limited in practice yesterday, but I am expecting him to play. And the other thing is, I mean, there's like on FanDuel specifically, you're getting a little bit of line value here because this is 24.5 on every other book that I saw that is available in the state of Virginia. So you get 2 yards here that could, absolutely be the difference between a winner and a loser. So I love that I'm getting a little value here. And I mean, it's a system play, rinse and repeat, right? We talked about this last week. It was George Pickens, right? Against that secondary for the Giants that tends to give up at least 1 or 2 big plays per week. George Pickens last week, 43-yarder. But also in that game, Van Jefferson had a 36-yarder. And Calvin Austin had a 29-yarder. So you get a long reception, and you get a long reception, and you get a long reception, right? 2 weeks ago, A.J. Brown. I won't get into all of them, but 2 weeks ago was A.J. Brown. He cashed for us. I think he had a 40-yarder. Jamar Chase had a 33-yarder. T. Higgins had a 24-yarder. 3 weeks ago, it was Tyler Lockett, 33-yarder. CeeDee Lamb, 55-yarder. Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson at his quarterback, 24-yarder. You just keep going back and forth. But the cap on McLaurin specifically, is he has a 23-yard reception or longer in back-to-back weeks now, and 4 of his last 6. We know that they've really kind of built that chemistry outside of those first 2 weeks where it feels like, the Commanders weren't doing a good job of taking the top off the defense. But he is, of course, getting the ball, deep and down the field now. So I'm expecting, Daniels to play, and I'm expecting McLaurin to have a reception over 23 yards in the divisional rivalry against the New York Giants this week.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this extensively about longest receptions against the Giants and even the Commanders as well, but I think more so this week against the Giants here. And I think you're right that Jaden Daniels should play in this game here for the Washington Commanders. He was out there last week. I think this could sneakily be one of the higher scoring games this week. We'll see what the Giants offense is able to do anything in this game. But I know that I can trust the Commanders offense to definitely put up points and get the yardage here. So Scary Terry hopefully does have a big week because, like you mentioned, with CeeDee Lamb being on your fantasy teams, I do have Scary Terry on a couple of mine there as well. All right, for my third player prop here, Chris, I'm going to go over to that Monday Night Football game. I'm going to take Cade Otton to go over 48.5 receiving yards. And we talked about the weapons that the Buccaneers team are missing, obviously, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin obviously done for the season. Mike Evans can still miss a couple more games because he is on the IR. But, we've mentioned how much success tight ends this season I've had against the Kansas City Chiefs, and honestly, it hasn't even been close. The Chiefs, so tight ends against the Chiefs are averaging close to 81 receiving yards per game. And then it goes to the Ravens at 75.5 receiving yards per game, and then drops down to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in fact. So could be a big week for tight ends in this matchup on Monday Night Football. But I'm looking at Cade Otton. He's been that guy that's stepped up for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense in the absence of those two guys. So back-to-back weeks, he's put up 80-plus receiving yards. He had 100 against the Baltimore Ravens. Back-to-back weeks, 10-plus targets, 17 receptions in total in those 2 games. And I'm just going to continue riding that trend of tight ends having success against the Kansas City Chiefs there. So expect Cade Otton. I think we do expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be trailing this game, whether it's by a touchdown or maybe even more, forcing them to throw the football. And what better way than to do that is to find Cade Otton continuously in this game here, Chris. So the number is 48.5 right now on his receiving yards. I'm going to take the over on that Monday Night Football game here.
It sounds like you love your player props too. You got a lot of really good things kind of brewing on both sides of the ball with these. I love that you went ahead and found a team that's lacking at wide receiver, not just down one but down two, and then to put the cherry on top, you gave out the numbers, so I won't regurgitate them, but yeah, they absolutely getting lit up. The Chiefs are by tight ends, and game script says that they'll be playing from behind. I actually got a honorable mention that I'll mention in this game because I do think they'll be playing from behind. So I love this with Kate Otten. Good find by you.
Yeah, I think this number hasn't really been adjusted properly by the market. I think last week it was at 44.5, but I still just don't think that's enough here for Kate Otten in this game. All right, so those are 3 player props each from myself and Chris. Let's get into our honorable mentions for NFL Week 9 here, Chris. I know you mentioned you like a couple. I like a couple here as well, but I'll let you rip and run.
We'll go Patrick Mahomes first. This number is on his passing touchdown specifically. It's 1.5, and it's crazy to think. I guess it's kind of crazy to think. I guess it maybe not be crazy to think. It's crazy to think that you can get his over 1.5 passing touchdowns at -115.
Yeah.
I understand. Like he has not been setting the world ablaze on by any means, any stretch of the imagination, but and he's actually only passed for more than 2 touchdowns twice. I think it's 3 times this season. So it does feel like it's a really good price here. Last week was one of the weeks where he actually had 2 passing touchdowns. And I think we see more fireworks here. Last 3, this was the other thing that jumped out to me. Last 3 games, the Tampa Bay defense is allowing a league high 3.3 passing touchdowns. I mean, they're giving them up in bunches. You get a touchdown and you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. If you just go back in and look at it, I think they've given up 4, and in 1 week they gave up 5. Patrick Mahomes, seems like he's sort of finding some chemistry deep into the year with Travis Kelce. We know that they got Hopkins over there now, so I think Xavier Worthy still has enough playmakers to make some plays in this one. I like him up and over 1.5. The other one I'll go is I'll go Jonathan Taylor under 18.5 rushing attempts here. This number comes in -120 on DraftKings and Bet365. He's over Jonathan Taylor, over the 18.5 in 3 straight games. But if you look at it, if you look at how what played out last week against your Texans, he had 20 attempts. But I think this number is low for a reason. It's dropped for a reason here. So the Minnesota Vikings run defense is something that I'm pretty confident about. I think coming off a bad week, we see them kind of get back into form. They do rank top 3 in opponent rush attempts, opponent rushing yards, and opponent yards per rush as well. They got gashed by Kyron Williams last week. So it makes sense that they get a bounce back here. There's also the idea that Flacco, who is a much more competent thrower deep, of the football down the field, could generate some plays and some completions down the field here, against this Minnesota Vikings defense. I just think with the Vikings coming off, a game where they did not play well on Thursday Night Football, we see a little bit more attention to detail on the defensive side. So I don't expect Jonathan Taylor to get 20 rushes, let alone 18.5. So I'll go below 18.5 rushing attempts for Jonathan Taylor. So Patrick Mahomes over his passing touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor under on his rushing attempts here. What are your thoughts on those? And let me know what you got.
Yeah, I played Mahomes last week over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and it was that revenge angle, quote unquote, for what transpired with the Raiders in that training camp with the whole, the puppet or whatever you want to call it with Patrick Mahomes there. So that was a good play there. But like you mentioned, it's back-to-back weeks that this Buccaneers defense has given up passing touchdowns to the opposing quarterbacks. I think that's something that could continue here for Patrick Mahomes. And obviously now, like you mentioned, him having DeAndre Hopkins there is only going to help the offense there, of course, with all the injuries that they've dealt with in that wide receiving group, being without Rashee Rice, and as well as Hollywood Brown, who hasn't played a snap this season, not going to for this team there. So yeah, now is the time right now for the offense and Patrick Mahomes to really start clicking here as we get to the latter part of crossing the halfway point here after this week of the NFL season. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor there, correlated to one of my honorable mentions here, but I'll mention this about the Jonathan Taylor one is that there's only been 2 running backs that have gone over this number of 18.5. That was Jordan Mason, who had 20 in week 2, and then last week, Kyron Williams who had 23 for this Rams team. But I 100% agree with you that it's going to be on Sunday Night Football. The defense should be, rising to the occasion here. And now you have Joe Flacco as the starting quarterback here. This number opened up, and I'll get into right of my honorable mention here, which kind of correlated because I do like the over for Joe Flacco on his passing yards in this game. It opened up at 228.5. It's up to 237.5. So that kind of tells you what we're thinking and what the market's thinking about the Colts offense this week, that it's going to have to be Joe Flacco on his shoulders and his arm to keep this Colts team inside the game. But it's also been like the quarterbacks have had success this season against the Minnesota Vikings secondary, because outside of week one, I think I mentioned this, I want to say last week when we talked about Matthew Stafford, I believe, that only Daniel Jones and I think it was Deshaun Watson. Only Daniel Jones, is the only quarterback that hasn't gone over this projection of 237.5 right now. Every other quarterback has went over this number here. And also, 4 straight weeks here, Chris, that the Vikings have allowed 2 or more passing touchdowns to the opposing quarterbacks there as well. So Jordan Love had 4, Aaron Rodgers 2, Jared Goff 2, and then last week, even Matthew Stafford threw for 4 passing touchdowns here. So I think that the recipe for success for this Colts team offensively, at least, will have to be on the shoulders of Joe Flacco. So up and over his passing yards there, and if you also want to sprinkle a little bit on his passing touchdowns, of 1.5 to go over, it's at plus 120 in this game. Couldn't talk you off of that. One more I'll throw out there, Devon Achane, over on his receiving yards. This number opened about 34.5. I'm starting to see 36.5 and on the rise. And it's really with the fact that Tua is back for this Miami Dolphins offense at the quarterback position. But you can take it at the early part of the season, Chris, when Tua was in the lineup there for this Dolphins team. Week 1, Devon Achane, I should say back-to-back weeks, in weeks 1 and week 2, he had 7 receptions each on 7 targets each, 76 receiving yards and 69 receiving yards. Let's fast forward to last week when Tua returned, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 50 receiving yards for Devon Achane. So I think that can continue this week here in this game for the Miami Dolphins going up against the Buffalo Bills. Bills are another team here, Chris, that I believe give up yards to the air. Yeah, they do, because I had Kenneth Walker last week to get up and over his receiving yards in that game. So he's already done it this week against the Bills once. I think that continues here as this Bills defense continues to struggle through the passing game with these running backs here. So that was another one that I did like for this week. I will get to the window with that one, but I just want to get your thoughts on those 2 that I just gave out.
Yeah, I think I like both of those. You know, they honestly, I don't know. I just feel like everything that you said so far this week makes a ton of sense. And I'm trying to figure out how you narrowed it down between what you like the most out of all of the player props that you shared, both honorable mention and the ones that you played so far. Yeah, I'll be telling you on a couple of those. You know, I like both of those. I think both of those are very, very solid, and they make sense situational as well, especially with good old Mr. Flacco. I think we see that offense look a little bit better, you know, now that we don't have a quarterback that's going to complete, you know, less than 50% of his passes back there.
Anything else for honorable mentions, Chris?
No, I'll stick to those 2. I don't like to give out too many, but I absolutely love both of those. I mean, I'm gonna be on both of those. Patrick Mahomes over passing touchdown, and Jonathan Taylor to stay under his 18.5 rush attempts.
Yeah, I like that as well. All right, before we get over to touchdown scores for this week, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered bet sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money line, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or press Build a Model for Me, and Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Rhythm went 24-3 in their props for the NBA Night 1. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. US players are always welcome. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. So they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. All right, Chris. Let's get into our touchdown scores for this week, and then we'll get over to best bets to wrap up the episode here. Who do you like to find the end zone?
Couple guys here, CD. We just kind of talked about CD Lamb, which you like, and Dak Prescott. I think he definitely finds his way into the end zone. DJ Moore is a guy that I haven't really bet on a lot this season, but it's just a really good matchup against the Arizona pass defense that's been absolutely putrid. So he gets a very favorable matchup here. I can see him finding the end zone, and at plus 200 over on FanDuel, I think that's definitely worth a stab. And then last but not least, I'll throw out one more. Jalen Hurts. He also has a really good matchup against the Jacksonville defense that's just bleeding points, right? Whether it's through the air, whether it's on the ground. I think we see a tush push or two here, for the city of brotherly love, and getting Jalen Hurts at plus 120 made a lot of sense to me as well. So we'll go DJ Moore, CD Lamb, and Jalen Hurts to get into the end zone this week. What about yourself?
Yeah, I like CD Lamb. I think a little bit correlated to what we mentioned about Dak Prescott. So hopefully those touchdown passes, both of them, in fact, do go to CD Lamb this week. Yeah, let's look at some of the higher scoring games that we do like are that Falcons and the Cowboys game you mentioned. Kyle Pitts has started getting involved in this offense for the Atlanta Falcons there. So I think that, again, there's an opportunity for him to find the end zone. That's around plus 155 for this week. We'll go over to the game between the who's the other game? Yeah, the Bears and the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison Jr. That numbers at plus 155 as well. I do like that. I think this is going to be a good week for the Cardinals here. I do like them on the side as well in this game. I know we don't talk about that a whole heck of a lot here, but I think this might be a good spot here for the Arizona Cardinals. I didn't get a chance to look up who the slot wide receiver is for the Green Bay Packers because they have a lot of guys that kind of they rotate in and out.
It's about seven of them. It's about seven of them.
So, and I've talked a lot about how we want to fade those slot wide receivers against the Detroit Lions there, but I couldn't really pinpoint on which guy it would be there. So I stayed away from that. Either Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua is going to find the end zone this week. I mean, they're both either plus 120 or plus 145. Both of those guys are back for this team here for the LA Rams. And don't look now, man. Maybe this Rams team can go on a run here a little bit with everybody being primarily healthy on the offensive side of the football for them. And the last one I'll throw out there is going to be Justin Jefferson, Sunday Night Football. I mean, it is minus 120. Definitely shop around, get the best number, but I think those are the guys I do like this week here to find the end zone for NFL Week 9. All right, so those are our touchdown scores for this week. Let's get into best bets here, Chris. I'll let you lead off. Where are you taking us for your best bet?
Best bet, we're going with the rookie on the road in Baltimore to get the job done. Bo Nix up and over 211.5 passing yards. We talked about this ad nauseum earlier on the show, so if you joined late, definitely go back and check that out. But he's just cleared this number. He's cleared this number pretty consistently 5 of his last 7 games. But also, I mean, Baltimore's pass defense has not been great at all. We even saw Jameis Winston, first game of the season, go up and over this number. So we'll go Bo Nix, best bet, quarterback, up and over 211.5 passing yards.
Love it. I think for my best bet, it's gonna be I'm gonna go with the Monday night football game best bet. Cade Otton over 48.5 receiving yards. We talked about extensively how bad the Chiefs defense has been against the tight end position, giving up 80 plus receiving yards to the tight end position there. I think Cade Otton back-to-back weeks has put together a game of 10 targets each in those games, 80 plus receiving yards. So I think that just continues here for Cade Otton in this game. I think they're obviously going to need him going up against the Chiefs, who right now are outside of a touchdown favorite in this game here. So I expect this team to be down. Baker Mayfield to throw the football, get maybe his pass attempts to go over as well. But hopefully a lot of those attempts and targets are going against Mr. Cade Otton. So over 48.5 receiving yards for Cade Otton in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs as my best bet. All right, short and sweet here. I like it, man. Efficient. Got it done in about 35, 40 minutes here. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun thus far. Honestly, just approaching the halfway point of the NFL season. And I think sometime next week we will be getting our NBA propcast going as well with our NBA player props. So definitely look out for that as well. But Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we go our separate ways?
Nah, man. Enjoy week 8. I think this is one of my. It feels like I said at the top of the show, like one of my favorite weeks to bet player props. We'll see if the results, match the pre-match feelings. But yeah, I'm excited for week 8, man. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the week, enjoy the weekend, football, other sports that you're watching, and let's cash some tickets, man. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as always.
Yeah, 100%, man. This has been a really good episode, and they have been throughout honestly the season. So hopefully we can put more money in the pockets of our listeners here for this week, of course, as well. So we'll be back next week, of course, for NFL, maybe some NBA in there as well. So great reminder. Number one, make sure you guys are subscribed to the Propcast YouTube channel. If you don't get to watch us live, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on Apple, go ahead and subscribe to us there as well. And you can also follow us on Twitter for the Propcast at the Propcast SGPN. And you also make sure you guys follow my guy Chris over there at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. Just does absolutely phenomenal work all across the sports that he does cover. And you can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. All right, enjoy the games this weekend, and hopefully we are talking about some more winners when we are back next week. And we'll talk to you guys then. And always remember to let it ride.